Good morning. I'm Nandini Kongani of CSCB, and today I'll be speaking about asymptotic notations. So, before I dive into the topic, what do you mean by asymptotic notations? So, we have to know that asymptotic notations are basically used to analyze the complexities of an algorithm in order to know the asymptotic analysis of it. So asymptotic notations are the mathematical notations which are used to describe the running time of an algorithm. It'll give you different cases like best case, average case, worst case scenarios, which we'll see in later on in this video. So basically they are used to describe the running time of an algorithm when the input tends towards a particular value or a limiting value. Say if suppose your input is n, like in a particular expression your input is n, it'll give you the running time of an algorithm when whatever input you have given, it tends towards a particular value or a limiting value. Now, for example, in bubble sort, when the input array is already sorted, the time taken by the algorithm is linear. That is, it is the best case. Because if you give an array which is not sorted, then in order to sort it, it'll take time. But if you give an array which is already sorted, that is the best case scenario. And the time taken by that is linear. It comes in linear terms, which is the best case. But when the input array is in reverse condition, the algorithm takes the maximum time in order to sort the elements. That is the worst case scenario. When you reverse it, it'll sort right from the reverse order. It'll take a lot of time, which will come in the order of some quadratic expression. That is the worst case scenario. Now, when the input array is neither sorted nor in reverse order, then it takes average time. Now, these durations are denoted using asymptotic notations. Like basically, they are used to know the running time of an algorithm. Whenever you want to know the durations or the running time of an algorithm, they are denoted using this asymptotic notations. There are mainly three types of asymptotic notations: big O notation, big omega, and theta notation. So what is asymptotic behavior? Like we have studied about limits in our previous classes. In a similar way, the asymptotic behavior is also represented. Like whenever in the case of a limit, whenever n tends to infinity, n tends to some value, we evaluate the value of a particular expression. But in the case of asymptotic, when you speak about the asymptotic behavior, you do not evaluate the value of an expression, but you basically ignore the insignificant parts of an expression or the constants in an expression. So the word asymptotic means approaching a value or a curve arbitrarily closely. That is, as some sort of limit is taken, like you approach a value or a curve arbitrarily closely. Same as, remember studying about limits in high school, this is the same. The only difference being, here we do not have to find the value of any expression. As I told you, we do not evaluate the value of an expression where n is approaching any finite number or infinity. But in case of asymptotic notations, we use the same model to ignore the constant factors and insignificant parts of an expression. To devise a better way of representing complexities of an algorithm, and in order to compare, in order so that the comparison between algorithms becomes easy, we use asymptotic notations, and that is about asymptotic behavior. Now, an example of this is if we take two algorithms with the following expressions representing the time required for them for execution. For example, expression 1 is 20n square plus 3n minus 4. And the second expression is your n cube plus 100n minus 2. Now, for different values of n, for different inputs of n, we just see how it is growing for the growing value of n. For example, now as per asymptotic notation, we should just worry about how the function will grow as the value of input grows. See, that is written here. We should just worry about how the function will grow as the value of n, as the value of your n, which is your input, will grow. Now, how will the function grow will purely depend on your degree of this polynomial. For example, n square and n cube. So in expression 2, it'll grow much faster. We do not need to care about this 20 or this insignificant parts like 3n minus 4 or 100n minus 2. The dependency of the function growing will depend on the highest power numeric or the highest power or the degree, I would say. So we just see about n square and n cube. That is like asymptotic notation. We just worry about how the function will grow as the input will grow. We do not worry about the constant terms, and we do not worry about the insignificant parts. Now, as per asymptotic notations, we should just worry about how the function will grow as the value of n will grow. And that will entirely depend on n square for the expression 1 and on n cube for the expression 2. Hence, we can clearly say that the algorithm for which running time is represented by the expression 2 will grow faster than the other one. Because n cube, the degree is more, simply by analyzing the highest power coefficient and ignoring the other constants. So that is asymptotic behavior. We ignore the constants and we ignore the insignificant parts like 3n minus 4 in the case of expression 1 and 100n minus 2 in the case of expression 2. We just depend upon the highest power coefficient. The main idea behind casting aside the less important part is to make things manageable so that the comparison of algorithms becomes easy and also a better way of representing the complexities of algorithms. Now, types of asymptotic notations. There are 3 types: big O, big omega, and theta notation. Now, when you speak about the theta notation, it will give you the bound of a function, that is the upper bound and the lower bound of an algorithm. See, theta notation encloses the function from above and below. Like over here, this is your function. It will enclose the function from above and below. That is, it will give you the upper bound and also the lower bound. Basically, you can say it will give you the bound of a function, since it represents the upper and the lower bound of the running time of an algorithm. It is used for analyzing the average case. Now, whenever you want to analyze the average case complexity of an algorithm, we use theta notation. For a function g of n, theta of g of n is given by the relation theta of g of n is equal to f of n if there exists positive constants c1, c2 and n naught, such that your f of n lies in between c1 into g of n and c2 into g of n for all n greater than n naught. The above expression can be described as a function f of n belongs to the set theta of g of n if there exists positive constants c1 and c2 such that it can be sandwiched. So all that you need to see is that your function f of n should lie between c1 into g of n and c2 into g of n. It should lie between both of them. Then you can say that your function f of n is a set, like it can be described. It belongs to the set theta of g of n. So it should be sandwiched in between c1 into g of n and c2 into g of n. As you can see here, your function f of n is lying in between c1 into g of n and c2 into g of n. That is the main condition. If a function f of n lies anywhere in between c1 into g of n and c2 into g of n, for all n greater than or equal to n naught, then f of n is said to be asymptotically tight bound. So in this case, I can say that f of n is asymptotically tight bound. And theta notation is usually used to, know for analyzing the average case complexity of an algorithm. And the important point is that your f of n function should be sandwiched in between both. Like it should give you the upper bound and also the lower bound. Now, speaking about the big O notation, first of all, when it gives you the worst case complexity of an algorithm. So we are very interested to always know the worst case complexity of an algorithm. That is why this big O notation comes into play a lot of times. It represents, like in case of theta notation, it represented the bound, that is both the upper bound and lower bound. But in case of big O notation, it will represent the upper bound of the running time of an algorithm. Now here, big O of G of n is equal to f of n if there exists positive constants C and n naught such that your f of n, it lies between 0 and your C into G of n for all n greater than n naught. That is, it should always lie below your upper bound, which is C into G of n. The above expression can be described as a function f of n belongs to the set big O of G of n if there exists a positive constant C such that it lies between 0 and C into G of n. This is 0 and your C into G of n. It should always give you the upper bound. So big O notation, it needs to satisfy this condition. 0 is less than or equal to f of n is less than or equal to C into G of n. Now, for any value of n, the running time of an algorithm does not cross the time provided by big O of G of n. Why? Because it will give you the worst case complexity. So, it will not exceed this time whichever is provided by big O of G of n. Next, your omega notation. Now, this will give you your lower bound of the running time of an algorithm. That is, your f of n will be up and your C into G of n will be down. So it provides the best case complexity. Your omega notation will give you the best case complexity. Your big O notation will give you the worst case complexity, and your theta notation will give you the average case complexity. So omega of G of n is equal to f of n if there exists positive constants C and n naught such that 0 is less than or equal to C into G of n is less than or equal to f of n. That is, your f of n should always be greater than your C into G of n. It will lie above C into G of n. If this particular condition is satisfied for all n greater than or equal to n naught, then you can tell that your function f of n, it belongs to the set omega of G of n. If there exists a positive constant C such that it lies above C into G of n for sufficiently large n. For any value of n, the minimum time required by the algorithm is given by omega of G of n. Because for the best case complexity, it will take very less time. So whenever you want to know the minimum time which is required by an algorithm, then you have to go for your omega notation. And there are properties of asymptotic notations, like there are general properties, reflexive properties, transitive properties, symmetric properties, and transpose symmetric properties. Now, when I speak about the general properties, it is very simple. If f of n is giving you big O of G of n, then if you multiply your f of n with any constant, then that is also big O of G of n. So multiplying your f of n with some constant, like over here a into f of n, will do no good to your big O of G of n. For example, f of n is equals to 2n square plus 5. It is your big O of n square because the highest degree is n square. Now, if you multiply this f of n with 7, it is still your big O of n square only. If you multiply, it doesn't make any changes to your big O of G of n. So similarly, this property satisfies. Now this general property, it is satisfied for both theta notation and omega notation also. If f of n is theta into G of n, then a into f of n is also your theta of G of n, where a is a constant. Again, if f of n is your big omega of G of n, then a into f of n will also be big omega of G of n. If you multiply with any constant, it will not change your big O of G of n, your theta of G of n, and your big omega of G of n. This is a general property. Reflexive property. If f of n is given, then f of n is big O of f of n. For example, f of n is equals to n square. Then your big O of n square, that is big O of f of n. Like over here, n square is there. That is the only highest degree with a coefficient of 1. So what is your big O notation? That is big O of n square. What is n square? Your f of n. That is nothing but big O of f of n. So if f of n is given, then f of n is big O of f of n. This property satisfies for both theta and omega also. Like if f of n is given, then f of n is also theta of G of n, or your f of n. And if f of n is given, then it is also big omega of f of n. For example, your f of n is the same, that is n square. Then what is your theta thing? Theta of n square. What is n square? Your f of n. So theta of f of n, it is satisfying. And f of n is the same, n square. Then what is your big omega notation? Big omega of n square. What is n square? Your f of n. It is satisfying. That is your reflexive property. Now transitive property. If f of n is big O of g of n, and g of n is your big O of h of n, then f of n is big O of h of n. Like your f of n is big O of g of n. Now your g of n is some big O notation of another function h of n. Then indirectly your f of n is big O notation of your h of n. That is transitive property. For example, you'll understand when I tell you the example. F of n is equal to n. And your g of n is equals to n square, and your h of n is n cube. Now, what does big O of n, big O of f of n? It is big O of n. Sorry, n is big O of n square. Right now, because your f of n is equals to n, and big O of g of n. Your f of n is nothing but big O of g of n. Your g of n is n square. So n is equals to big O of n square. And n square is big O of n cube, because here they told g of n is big O of h of n, and h of n is nothing but n cube. So n square is big O of n cube. So n is big O of n cube. Indirectly, your n is equal to big O of n cube. You have to remember that f of n is big O of g of n, and g of n is your big O of h of n. Then f of n is your big O of h of n. This property satisfies for both theta and omega notations as well. This is known as transitive property. Now coming to symmetric properties. If f of n is theta of g of n, then g of n is theta of f of n. Reverse. Your f of n is theta of g of n. Then your g of n will be equal to theta of f of n. You just need to reverse the theta to the other side. For example, f of n is equal to n square, and g of n is also equal to n square. Then f of n is your theta of g of n, and g of n is n square, so theta of n square. And g of n is equal to theta of f of n. F of n is also n square, so theta of n square. This property, it only satisfies. One important point is that symmetric property is only satisfied by theta notation. That is, if f of n is theta of g of n, then your g of n is also equal to theta of f of n. This is your symmetric property, and it is satisfied only by theta notation. Your big O and your big omega notations do not support this property. Transpose symmetric properties. If f of n is big O of g of n, then g of n is omega, big omega of f of n. This is transpose symmetric. For example, your f of n is n and your g of n is n square. Then your n is, that is f of n is big O of g of n. In the place of g of n, just put n square. So n is equals to big O of n square. And g of n is equals to n square they have given. But here they have told g of n is omega of f of n. So n square is equal to big omega of f of n. In the place of f of n, just put n. That's it. That is transpose symmetric property. This property, it only satisfies for your big O and your big omega notations. It doesn't satisfy for your theta notations. When you speak about transpose, it satisfies only for theta. Sorry, symmetric, it only satisfies for your theta. So this is about your asymptotic notations and few general properties. Thank you.